sponsored by Blackmagic Design, the world's highest quality products for the feature film, post and broadcast industries. Blackmagicdesign.com. And by the Tonkawa Film Festival, celebrating short films from around the world. tonkawafilmfestival.com.
Hello and welcome to No Rest for the Weekend. I'm Jason Godbey, and today on the program, I'm going to be talking about some of the films from this year's Brooklyn Film Festival. Joining me now via Zoom, it's No Rest for the Weekend's own Yasin Lago and our man in Hollywood and the man behind ActuallyPaid.com, Mr. Bill Hammon. Welcome, guys.
Good evening, sir.
All right, so we got some films here that you guys bravely, courageously watched while I was busy torturing myself at Tribeca in the long day's toil on red carpets and also Zoom interviews and reviewing movies there. We'll be talking about those for months to come. But I did want to do an episode on Brooklyn, as is tradition, because we are in Brooklyn, and also Bill loves the animation program, so I wanted to give you a shot at that. Yas, let's start with you. Talk about your first film.
The first movie I caught at the festival, which is a very eclectic collection of films. This one was called Harkness. It's a documentary, comes out of Canada. The writer-director, Maria Marcana, does an amazing job of following a musician who was young and starting out in about 94, had gotten a tour going, had gotten a band, had gotten buzz, and had basically fizzled out by the end of their European tour. Zip to 2000, he comes up with this plan to come out with the ultimate album, the ultimate expression of greatness, and you know, he has all of these aspirations of making a Beatles-sized super album. 25 years later, from out of the basement of his mother's home in Toronto, comes the occasion. The name of the magnum opus of the artist known as Harkness. And this movie is basically about his rise, literally from the basement, to tour out of Canada, across America, and then eventually to Europe, where he journeys to his version of Mecca, which is Abbey Road. And it's an interesting, very interesting journey that you're taking with a guy that initially you want to write off as a bit of a loser. He's in his mother's basement. You know, he's been making the same record for 25 years. So you instantly want to put him in this sort of like a loser position. And by the end of it, if you have even just the slightest heart, you're rooting for him like 100%. Is he delusional? Yes. Is he crazy? There is a very good possibility he has some issues that he should be maybe taking some sort of medication for. But I assure you that there is something in there, a spirit that you want someone to nurture. He desperately needs an executive producer, you know, for his music. But he has a vision that might be even larger than him. It's an interesting film.
All right, cool, man. That's interesting. All right, Bill, what do you have for us?
This next one is called Foul Evil Deeds, which makes you think this might be like a really over-the-top horror movie. It's more of a very laid-back, dark comedy. It's directed by Richard Hunter, who this is his first feature, but he's had a pretty steady career in short films and commercials over in the UK up until this point. The film debuted at the Locarno Film Festival in Switzerland last year, and it played at Slam Dance here in LA back in February. I tried to see it, but I couldn't make it work. So I was very thankful that I got a second chance here to see it through Brooklyn. It's very voyeuristic. And you can see a lot of influences from the likes of Michael Haneke in Hunter's work. He even admits like Haneke is a huge influence on him. This is very much a dry, dark comedy about the casual cruelty we exhibit in our everyday lives. The stuff that makes the headlines, robberies, murders, everything like that, the true crime podcast and all that nonsense. That's very small, no matter how much a show like Law and Order would make it seem like New York is just a cesspool of crime every 5 feet. Most of those sins committed are very minor. So this movie shot on mini DV cameras from like 2008 and up-resed in the edit. Like, this is very basic Academy ratio 4:3 SD filming, but again, affected in the edit to make it look more cinematic. Kind of has that grainy look of 28 Days Later. There's essentially a whole bunch of vignettes that are intercut all around this small, quiet English town where people are just living their lives, but they're doing wrong things. And I was kind of amazed at how well it's paced, because anything from, a bunch of teenagers pulling a very ill-advised and stupid prank on their friends to a misunderstanding between a boss and his coworker that could be interpreted as sexual harassment, to a wealthy man literally murdering his wife and trying to hide the body. It's like, it's all treated with this same level of almost fly on the wall detachment, almost like an old school, like 70s British documentary, like a TV documentary. You're almost waiting for someone involved in these scenes to just turn to the camera and say, and here we have the vicar. The vicar is old and he's sexually repressed and his wife doesn't want to sleep with him, so he watches porn and he casually kills his neighbor's cat with rat poison because there are rats in his attic. Oops. Like, there's a lot of fun to be had in the steady escalation of all of these acts, from the mundane to the heinous. And Hunter gives every single one of them the proper amount of escalation it deserves. Like, he's not trying to ramp everything up early on and then move on to the next story. Everything is intercut. It's all happening in this one town, and none of the people interact with each other. It's just, there's essentially 5 short vignettes and a few interstitials. But treating every crime as morally equal through the camera lens. And it's kind of fascinating. Like if you're looking for, gore, you're not going to find it. If you're looking for jump scares, why would you? But you're not going to find it. There's no demon. There's no battle between good and evil. It's, an ex-con who is he's working as a janitor on work release so that he can, get the rights to see his kids again, because he went to jail for like a drunk driving incident. And he's so casually abused by everyone around him that he turned back to the bottle and burns a bar down, because he'd rather be back in jail than cleaning toilets that people immediately destroy. Like, he'd rather be back in prison than be stripped of all of his dignity. It's like, it's weirdly relatable, even in the more harsher things. Like the teenagers, like that whole series caps off with them tricking their friend into smoking a joint with a little firecracker in it. And of course it goes horribly awry because these are stupid teenagers and they don't think, oh, maybe putting an explosive in a joint is not a good thing. But we've all had similar moments. We've all thought, oh, this is going to be hilarious, and it backfires tremendously. There's this weird non-judgmental approach to any of it, because just the old church line, we're all sinners. It's just a matter of degrees. So yes, we have different moralities and different tiers of justice depending on the crime, the different punishments to fit the crimes. But whether maliciously or even by accident, conscious actions are taken to make these bad things happen. And that's what Hunter kind of focuses on as far as just centering your focus on it. The camera, even with just being mini DVs, like the focus of the shots is very tight center. Like he only moves the lens in rare circumstances where he wants you to see something off to the side. Like this is very direct in your face, but again, medium shots so that it's at a remove. So I kind of like how he works all that out. And to be clear, this is an art house film. Like this will probably not get any kind of major distribution. I could see a streamer like Shudder picking it up because it is horror adjacent, but this is very much a European art house film, and it wears that on its sleeve. So for a first feature, especially, this is some pretty strong work. Given limited resources, a full year to shoot it, basically casting friends and family as the actors. Like this is kind of almost guerrilla filmmaking from someone who does have an established career, and especially given his influences, his stated influences, he's doing justice by them.
When you started to describe it, I immediately had like Robert Altman vibes.
Yeah.
Something like Shortcuts.
Yes, he did mention in an interview with Variety, he mentioned that Shortcuts is a huge influence on him. So, and yeah, that you definitely get that vibe.
Yeah, that's sort of that fly on the wall type camera that Altman did so well. But yeah, but you got to be up for it. It's not everyone's cup of tea kind of movie. Definitely not.
When I read the synopsis and I started to figure out what was going on, like I figured this was going to be a verite style shoot, but no, he definitely opts more for voyeuristic and fly on the wall, which I think gives it a nice little touch to separate it from other works of similar nature.
All right, so Yas, what do you got next for us?
Next one up is one that I saw. I thought it struck me as something thought provoking. Long afterwards was I See the Demon, directed by Jacob Lees Johnson. It stars Alexis Zola Coffer. She was just in Freaky Tales and Sympathy for the Devil. She's the lead of an ensemble. The movie consists of a surprise birthday party, and it's one of those catching up with old times sort of things. In the middle of this, our lead, Lucy, who's played by Alexis Zolokoffer, seems a little bit uneasy. Like there's something sort of wrong, but you don't really get the total vibe of what it is. You don't know if it's catching up with old times, whether or not it's her mother, who she's still kind of getting over having a terrible sick spell at one point. There was the toxic relationship of a former boyfriend that they were all aware of. So there's a couple of different things that through the story, through conversation, you find that she's kind of trying to get over. In the backdrop, there's a comet falling from the sky. If that means anything to you, it really shouldn't, but it will. It's something that obviously you should remember because it's the first thing that they show you in the movie is her looking at this comet. And it proceeds to go into the party, which during the party, she then begins to have visions. First, there are notes with obscure writings on them. And then eventually she starts to hear things in other rooms that nobody goes into, and eventually starts to see visions, some of her mother and some abstract being, which we naturally, from the title, we take as I See the Demon, and do not go any further to spoil anything because the story takes you into a subtle yet complex sort of series of conversations and confessions that lead you into what is really going on, because what you're seeing is not what you get. And I think I could say this without spoiling too much. There are elements of thriller, horror, light touches of horror, and science fiction where you won't. I believe you probably won't see coming. Though I have to admit, I kind of did in some spots, only because I watched a lot of this stuff. So there was some things where it's like, I wonder if this, I wonder that your mind starts to think. It gives you enough room to think. It's not one of these thrillers that's constantly moving, constantly throwing things in front of you, so that you can't think during the movie. It gives you this opportunity to think about what it could be, what's happening, what could be happening to her. And in that space, you may figure out what's happening. In which case, go with the ride, because I think in the very end, that very last frames, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised in that it goes just one extra place. Like, oh, okay. That's an interesting movie, especially for one that is obviously of a modest budget, one that is one movie that's going to go through, hopefully, a lot of festivals and find its place, on some stream or somewhere. If it plays in theaters, it'll be I think it'll be, art house kind of stuff. But it's an interesting film. I found it engaging.
All right, Bill. So finally, we got to your favorite part of this film festival, the animation program. We can't review all of the animated films. How many of these things did you see?
There were 31 this year, and I'm kind of amazed that this is not an Academy qualifying festival, because we've seen previous animated short nominees that have featured in this festival. So I hope they align with the Academy at some point so that this is officially qualifying, because we get such good stuff every year that deserves to be in the conversation. So, but yeah, obviously we're not going to talk about all 31. But a few highlights. First of all, an honorable mention to the best title of the group. It's a stop motion meet cute film. It's not that revolutionary, but on the title alone, I fell in love with it. It's called "A Bird Hit My Window and Now I'm a Lesbian," and it's literally just that. Like it's a woman who breaks up with her boyfriend because she realizes she's gay. A bird hits her window and dies, and a random woman comes and brings the bird into her apartment, and she's also a lesbian, and they form a relationship. It's like it's a very dark alternative meet cute, and I kind of just love it. But yeah, the title alone is just great. But the biggest winners for me, there's a short called Sea Angels, which if you saw Nick Park's Creature Comfort shorts back in the late 80s and early 90s, where they're like, it's zoo animals like being interviewed as if they're just random people on the street. Sea Angels is kind of like that, except it's mermaids at like a tourist trapped SeaWorld knockoff hotel resort. So like these real life mermaids are interacting with tourists and getting hit on by drunk college guys who don't know how fish anatomy works. And then they do these office style documentary interviews with like a film crew that's supposed to be there. It's very on the nose, very sardonic, and it's got a subtle message about environmentalism behind it, because the idea is we polluted the ocean so much that mermaids had to come to the surface and interact with humans and ask for help. So lot of fun stuff there. Christopher and the Bug basically is the best children's short in this mix-up. Very 2D hand-drawn Disney-style animation. Just a little morality tale about an introverted owl who accidentally lets a tiny insect into his house, which you never see. You just see how it affects the world around him. He's that tiny. But it's Christopher's efforts as an antisocial person to get this bug out of his house, and then once he does, realizing what he's missing, like the accidental friend he made. Very, very sweet children's story. Again, like Christopher himself kind of reminded me as if it was a redesign of the owl from Winnie the Pooh. Like very, very kid friendly design and story. Brim Broom Boulevard, another stop motion film about a kid who has an underwhelming Halloween costume. So he wanders into a cornfield and finds this high end boutique magically appearing that lets him design the fabulous witch outfit of his dreams, like Nightmare Before Christmas meets RuPaul's Drag Race. Outstanding animation here, like Henry Selick quality. I'm not just saying Nightmare Before Christmas for the reference. Like Selick himself would approve of this. This is very much up that alley and masterfully done. And then my favorite of the bunch, it won the Spirit Prize in the competition. It's called The Death of James. It's directed by a veteran animator named Sam Chow, who worked on films like Osmosis Jones and Eight Crazy Nights. The man's been around the block. And it's based on a story about two of his college friends, 10 some odd years ago, 10, 20 years ago. And it's basically these two friends, Kevin and Ellery. And Kevin has a pet ferret named James who is terminally ill and deteriorating rapidly. So the decision is made to put him down. But being broke college students, they really can't afford to go to a vet to have it done professionally. They have to kind of do it themselves. It ends up being this philosophical and, again, darkly comic look at existentialism and how we face death, what we would want to happen to us after we pass, the kind of catharsis that comes from just facing tragedy and sadness head on. Like it reminded me, the weekend before I graduated college 20 some odd years ago, we had to put down my family dog that I had since I was 9 years old. And I wasn't able to be there for that moment. My mom tried to wait until I got home the next weekend, but the dog kept deteriorating. So we had to just get it done before she suffered any further. And I have always kind of like wondered, what did I miss? Like what could I have done to be there in those last moments? So we get an animated representation of that, including no matter how prepared you think you are for it, the just absolute wail of emotion when the deed is done. It's very well written. And for minimalist, like watercolor 2D animation, very vibrant and detailed. It's like this is one of those kind of stories where it's like, we're not going to sugarcoat what's happening here. We're going to have some laughs because that's the human condition. But when you have to get faced with a moment like this, we're all going to experience it in one form or another, whether it's a pet or a family member or eventually ourselves. This moment, this end of the line comes for everyone. And the way these two characters who have never really faced death before deal with it, coping with each other, and reinforcing their bonds of friendship in the span of 8 minutes is something truly special.
I mean, they always have great stuff for animation, and you're right, it should be a qualifying festival because, stuff, we've literally seen stuff there get nominated for Oscars.
My Year of Dicks 2 years ago is like it won in Brooklyn, then it eventually won other festivals and qualified and got nominated. So believe me, we do have award caliber stuff in this festival. So whoever has to reach out to the Academy or vice versa, let's make it happen.
In a world with the AI and CGI, it just warms my heart that people are still pushing clay around and making animation with puppets.
Yeah, the overall winner of the festival is a film called Humantis, where it's a stop motion film where that's based on like these camouflaging mantis bugs that can look like orchids. They're actually called orchid praying mantises. So the Humantis characters are anthropomorphized flower praying mantises, and the main character it's completely silent, but they're all moving in unison. They're all acting as a homogenous group, and this one Humantis, its petals start to fall off, its white visage starts to fade, so it literally starts cannibalizing other Humantises taking off their pedals to replace and cover up the fact that it's aging, essentially. Like it's a really strong metaphorical look at how the paradigms of beauty and the unfairness of the aging process works, and it's brilliant stop motion. Like it wasn't my favorite of the festival, but I can easily understand why it won.
This Film Fest and New Fest and Tribeca, it's a lot. We have a lot of coverage coming at you, but you guys have been great. I thank you so much for doing this. Yas, you've been kicking out the jams on reviewing stuff for No Rest for the Weekend, especially the horror stuff, which has been great. And Bill, of course, you got your blog. Just remind people real quick, if they want to find you, read your reviews, where can they find you?
The website is actuallypaid.com. You can find me on YouTube, Blue Sky, and Twitter at actually_paid. And as far as the videos go, I've actually started a new series where I do quickie short reviews, like 1-minute reviews of new releases using 3 randomly generated words, just to kind of challenge myself to see how quickly I can come up with a blurb using my random vocabulary. So it's getting a good response, and it's a bit of fun to do. So keep your eyes peeled for that as well.
And that's all we have for you today. Thanks so much for taking this trip down the rabbit hole. For more of our content, including more film festival coverage, visit norestfortheweekendpodcast.com. You can subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube, youtube.com/getbehindtherabbit. I'd like to thank my mates, Yasin Lago and Bill Hammon, for joining me. And a big thanks to our sponsors, Blackmagic Design and the Tonkawa Film Festival. For the BTRP Media Network, I'm Jason Godbey. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
This is the BTRP Media Network.